BioShock, The Witcher, The Last of Us, Mass Effect. When I say the word story, these are probably some of the games which might come to mind for you. All of these games craft incredible narratives in deep and lore-filled worlds. Something I've noticed though is that for a lot of games, story is often something which tends to come in between the various action set pieces and parts of gameplay. That's not to say that these action parts don't contribute to the story, but fighting is often something you need to do in a game in order to get to the story beats. Usually these go something like this. You fight, you get a cutscene, and then you fight some more and maybe there's some exposition over the fight before you get to another big cutscene. That's why when I first started playing Into the Breach, it surprised me that after my sessions, I was oddly left thinking about the story it told over anything else. For those who don't know the game, here's a quick mini review. Into the Breach is a turn-based strategy game where you play as a company of giant mechs trying to stop the Vek, a race of giant bug monsters terrorizing the people of Earth. It's reminiscent of games like Advance Wars or Fire Emblem, but I'd actually say it's more similar to chess than anything else. The game is awesome and is so unique in that the game is less about killing all the enemies and more about mitigating damage to civilians, key buildings, and the power grid which helps keep Earth together. Sure, you can do damage, but a lot of your moves are also about positioning and manipulating the position of your enemies. A lot of the time though, you're going to be outnumbered, so you need to make important decisions, such as potential sacrifice, in order to complete your objectives. It has roguelike elements where every run you engage in is more or less self-contained. So in terms of explicit story in Into the Breach though, there honestly isn't much. The premise of the story is that you manage teams of time travelers who travel to different timelines of Earth to fight an invasion by the Vek. You go to these different corporate-controlled islands and you use your giant mechs to protect Earth's power grid while securing parts of each island. After you secure at least 2 islands, and if you so desire, up to 4, you can go into your final fight. Some timelines you're able to save, but some though will inevitably fall to the Vek threat. There's no big fancy cutscenes and very little dialogue, with the island CEOs giving some words between battles and the occasional line from your time travelers when they or buildings take damage. This made me wonder, how on earth did a game which is almost entirely focused on gameplay seem to captivate me so much and leave me thinking about its story long after? What I realized is that Into the Breach tells an epic story through its game mechanics and the actual game flow, and I wanted to observe one battle to help show how the game makes you feel invested. In many ways, Into the Breach reminds me of a mecha anime and how their stories might play out. You start the scene off in a serene city. Then, the earth trembles. A young boy looks out the window of his tiny apartment in a massive super complex. In the distance he sees the Vek. The massive and terrifying Vek begin to appear out of the ground, and he starts to hear panic in the city. The boy hears people scream and run to their homes as certain death has arrived at their doorstep. Then, a shadow appears to drape the city overhead and blocks out the sun. Is it another Vek? Is this where it all ends? With thundering crash, the boy sees by his window. A giant mech has landed, and in the distance, 2 more. The boy hears commotion, and people in the city exclaim with relief. The mechs are here! We're saved! In this episode, you find yourself in a city where they're trying to launch 2 satellites into the sky to help provide support for Earth's defense grid. Your job as commander is to protect the satellites and make sure the Vek can't destroy them. The battle starts, and yes, I know I don't play ideally here. This is actually recording from one of my early runs, but I'm more so focused on the actual flow of the game. A time pod flies through the sky and lands on the battlefield. Your company needs to try their best to collect this and protect it from the Vek, as it'll provide useful supplies for the future. The Vek start to move in on the first of the 2 satellites. One of them moves in on a mech as well. Due to their enormous size, they move slowly, but one hit is all that they need to level an entire building. The mechs spring into action and reposition themselves. The Walker, captained by Jim Jimmers, secures the time pod, and with a titan fist, smacks a hornet into another, killing it. The cannon mech, captained by Alexis, fires at a scorpion, knocking it out of the way and removing the threat on the rocket. Finally, the artillery mech, captained by Lita, then comes in and fires a long-range shot at the other damaged hornet, killing it as well. Then, reinforcements arrive for the Vek. Another scorpion. The first scorpion, angry at Alexis, moves in and grabs the cannon, locking it in place. How will she be able to escape? The new scorpion does the same, grabbing the rocket and threatening to destroy it. Lita fires a shot which knocks back one of the scorpions, and Captain Jim comes in and knocks it back more, blocking potential reinforcements. Meanwhile, Alexis, realizing that the scorpion grabbing her is already weakened, fires a shot and blasts it to smithereens. Finally, the first of the rockets launches. The commotion attracts more of the Vek though as reinforcements come in. A firefly positions itself, ready to fire upon the boy and their building. With some quick thinking, Lita knocks the firefly out of the way, and Alexis blasts it into a burning forest. Jim then destroys one of the overlords. However, some damage is unavoidable. The firefly shoots its juice at the cannon mech, and it receives some damage, but she's still okay. Then, another wave of reinforcements arrive. Now there's 5 Vek and only 3 mechs. How can our heroes possibly survive? They hear in the comms radio that the satellite is almost ready to launch. Just protect it for a little bit longer. The Vek target the boys' building once again, while others target the mechs and the rocket. With only 3 mechs, how can they possibly protect against everything? The team needs to think fast. Lita fires a shot, knocking a scorpion into the firefly and killing it. Alexis, without much other option, fires at the scorpion, knocking it into an area where the rocket will take off. A grim look comes upon Jim's face. He realizes he can't protect some of the innocent civilians, and yet his mission is to protect the satellite at all costs. He moves in on the firefly, threatening the rocket, and knocks it out of the way. The scorpion and the hornet strike, taking down 2 buildings, and damaging Earth's power grid. The game even tells you how many people die, jeez. Jim can hear as screams ring out. The boy looks out the window, terrified at the sheer power of the Vek. The rocket finally launches. The Vek, realizing that the rockets have left orbit, begin their retreat. People yell from their buildings, joyous that the Vek threat is no more. But alas, sometimes loss is unavoidable in war. And hopefully you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Because of the whole game flow, I started seeing every encounter in Into the Breach as another episode, each time the stakes getting higher and the enemies getting more terrifying. With the different captains you can have piloting your mechs, this gives you different characters, and sometimes, when things get tough, sometimes you need to sacrifice them to avoid losing the war. The game even has this climactic ending, and of course, spoiler warning ahead. Into the Breach has this big climactic finale where you try to infiltrate and destroy the Vek Hive. You need to protect a bomb until it can blow up and wipe them from the Earth. How this bomb doesn't kill all the people on Earth too, I'm not quite sure, but don't think about it too much. The entire level is pretty stressful with rocks and lava and all sorts of things getting in the way, and there's a pretty good chance of you losing your mechs. But come on, tell me this isn't the exact type of ending you would see in a sci-fi mech movie. I say all of this really just to say that Into the Breach has really changed what I think about with regards to story and games. On the surface, Into the Breach seems simple and very few words are ever really said, but once you dig into it, you'll find a world and story told through the game's levels, mechanics, and game flow. Hey guys, James here again, and I hope you enjoyed that video. Into the Breach is seriously such a good game. Definitely give it a try if you haven't already. And feel free to let me know down below, what other games do you love the story to? Are there other games that you think do similar things? I love to interact with my community and I would love to hear from you. Of course, if you enjoyed that video, please do consider hitting that like and subscribe button as it really helps my channel. And as usual, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.